This is Rachel Hill with the African American Cultural Garden Sankofa web series. And in this series, we're going to highlight some of the most amazing things about Cleveland. We're going to talk to wonderful people, and you are going to learn about the history of the African American Cultural Gardens. Right now in history, this is so important to us because it looks at the past, the present, as well as the middle passage. So these are key things that people don't know about, don't study, but we're going to talk about it some more. We're going to talk about what does Black history and culture mean to our guests, mean to us, and also what does Black history mean as well as our lives continue to evolve and take place in this society as of now, from our ancestors to present day. One of the reasons why I am a part of this garden is because I believe in it, and I believe in learning about our culture, learning about our history, and also what lies in store for future generations. I actually know the president and the development chair, and once they told me about the garden, which I'd never heard of before, I was so excited to try my hand to see what I can do to help bring this to prominence. We need donations. We need to be able to grow our garden, but we're very excited to present this series to you. My co-host Kenny Hill, you're going to see some interviews with some movers and shakers in the city of Cleveland, very important people, and learn about them, and you're going to learn about the garden as well. We hope you stay tuned. Enjoy the show. This is Rachel Hill for the African American Cultural Gardens Black History and Culture web series. And I am here today with Cecil Lipscomb. And we're going to talk a little bit about Cecil and what does the garden mean to him. How are you doing today, Cecil?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for taking the time with me, Rachel.
Good morning. So can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. And
I lived in Richmond for a few years.
Did you?
Yes.
Did you? Wonderful, wonderful. So we could call you family for real. But came to Cleveland in the late 90s and been working in the cell phone industry, and then transitioned after going to school at Case, transitioned to the nonprofit sector, and through that effort I literally went from the Cleveland Clinic to now at the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland as the executive director. But I consider Cleveland my home now, and I've been here long enough. I know the city, and I know the East Side versus West Side, Wood High School, Shaw versus, Cleveland Heights in football. I know the whole history, but I say it's where I grew up from a business perspective. So I love Cleveland. I'm a Browns fan through and through.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you that Shaker Heights is the best school out of all of them, first and
Wow.
foremost. But
wow.
What made you come to all places to pick Cleveland, Ohio?
Well, honestly, it was our regional headquarters for, at the time, GTE.
Okay.
And the old Giant Eagle headquarters over in Bedford, Ohio. And when I got here, it was like, I couldn't even say the name of the county. I was Kaya.
Because there are no counties in Richmond.
No,
because
there are counties,
when I moved to Richmond, though,
yeah,
I was like,
right.
what county do I live in? Because
No,
I'm like,
you
in
live in
Cleveland,
the
I live in
city.
Cuyahoga County, right? And
Yeah.
I didn't understand that concept.
Yeah.
I was like, but everybody lives in a county.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that concept. So I know
We
exactly
can
what
talk
you're
about
doing.
that too, Rachel. We can talk about because Henrico County was separated from the city intentionally.
Okay.
So now, so let's. I came here and I felt like this was a hidden gem. It was a place where I had never visited before, and when I got here, I asked the guy at the airport. I said, "Where do Black people live?" And he was like confused by the statement because
Was
I
he
was
black or
considering
white?
he was black.
Okay.
And it turns out to be a local DJ. But he said, well, I guess if you want to find where Black people live, it's on the East Side. And I said, okay, because I wanted to see the conditions. I did this as a part of my travels for business. I wanted to see the conditions of how African Americans were faring in the city. And so I left the airport, I rented a car, left the airport, and I headed east. This was prior to my interviews and all of that good stuff. And I found myself going through this area, Rockefeller Park. I said, man, I've never seen a park system so nice. Then I made my way up to Cleveland Heights on Lee Road. And at the time, lemongrass was there and all that whole area. And I'm going, this is a great housing stock. And then I made myself way over to your old stomping grounds, Shaker Heights. as she looks at the camera. And I said, oh my gosh, who would have thought that the city that had some negative connotations has such a beautiful, I said, this is a hidden gem. And I went into that interview with more confidence about I wanted to obtain the job and relocate here just because of the people that I interacted with and what I saw of the city. It was just a beautiful place. And I still feel that to this day.
And then the cost of living as well is a lot cheaper than the East Coast too.
That's very true.
No tolls. We don't tax food here.
Yeah, we got private highways down in Northern Virginia.
Exactly.
66, all those places.
So major differences. But then you said you attended Case Western University, and what made you decide to go to Case?
So Case Western was a place where I felt that had a lot of prestige in Cleveland. Very much a research institution. It was diverse. At the time, the Peter B. Lewis building had just been built, and at the end of the day, there was an opportunity for me to take my formal, let's call it, schooling, which I'll retract. I started at Ursuline College.
Okay.
I finished my degree at Ursuline, which was a very nurturing place.
Okay.
I was a late bloomer in terms of education, but I kept persevering, and so then I took a graduate certificate course at Case Western at the Mandel School, because my family always was engaged in community work. They were always very much live beyond yourself, help your neighbor, and so I felt like I wanted to do something in the nonprofit space. But I didn't quite know what. At the end of the day, I decided on a degree within the business field because it had a nonprofit concentration in that at Case. And my experience there was wonderful. Shout out to Deborah Bibb and folks over there, that Melvin Smith, Dr. Smith, running the corporate executive program. It's just a wonderful institution, and I believe of colleges and universities in the country, it's ranks among the top.
And then after you got your degree, what was your first position after that in the field that?
Yeah, and so I left there and went to, I actually worked at the university, raised money in fundraising.
Oh, for Case?
For Case, in the School of Engineering.
Okay.
And right after a lot of folks transitioned from the fundraising department at Case and went over to the Cleveland Clinic. So during that time period, I actually went to the Heart Center. They were building the new Cleveland Clinic Heart Pavilion, the Sidell Miller Pavilion, and I ran I guess what we call the Heart Fundraising Program. I was the senior director of fundraising there. So I flew around the country. That actually pulled me away from Cleveland more than I wanted. I was flying around the country quite often, and wanted to make sure that we brought resources and support back to the Northeast Ohio area.
Okay. And one of the things you had mentioned earlier was that Cleveland kind of had a bad rap or negative connotation.
Yeah.
What do people think of Cleveland outside of Ohio? Can you tell
Well, they
us a little
don't
bit about
know.
that?
They don't know. I'll be honest with you. It's like, it's almost like the notion of, if you're not on the coast, you're in this kind of gap.
You're not first or last.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think if you really consider now that LeBron at the time played for us, it brought some reputation. Yeah. So we have a good rep now, but it still has some improvement from a business perspective. From what we care about the city. I tell people all the time, don't talk down on, it's like talking down on your own family. I would never speak against the city when in common conversations about, I rep Cleveland, and in my opinion, there is much to be proud of with the city, hence why we're sitting here in front of the African American Cultural Gardens, which is unlike any that I've ever seen.
Yeah, a lot of people think we live on farms. And I'm like, I don't look like a farmer at all.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, never milked a cow in my life. But can you tell us about what does African American history and culture mean to you?
Wow. First of all, like when you grew up in Virginia, you could have just from my family. I come from one of the oldest families in the country, right? And we've kind of know our pedigree back 13 generations almost.
Oh, wow.
14. And when you understand the context in which Africans came to the nation, when you understand the context in which Native Americans were here, and then settlers from Europe came, and then how the interaction occurred, it almost gives you a better glimpse as to what we're enduring to this day, right? And so African American history to me is very complicated. It's very complicated. Here I am, light skinned, right, wearing African garb.
Okay.
And it's like, wait a minute, where does that come from? So I'll just give you the context that I perceive the history to be. 711, the Moors conquered basically modern day Portugal, Spain, that whole Iberian Peninsula. They ruled that until 1492. Okay? I'm talking about Moors from Africa. Okay? 1492, Queen Isabella, King Ferdinand, sent who? Columbus to sail the ocean blue. That's what we know. We were taught that in our histories in this country. So now you have 1492 in America, the Spaniards basically maintaining control of their legacy through conquistadors and settlers and travelers within that context. But then the English wanted freedom from the Spaniards' control, so they started seeking out opportunities to gain their wealth, okay, and prestige. So in the 1600s, here you have the English trying to come into Jamestown. It was pirates that stole the White Lion. English settlers, English pirates stole the White Lion slave ship, and that was headed to Veracruz, Mexico, with slaves, 20 Angolan slaves. And that's how the first slaves came to America. It was the Spaniards warring against the English for control of a land that they stole from, with some of my ancestors in the Powhatan Confederacy, which were Native American. And then ultimately, because there was a, let's call it food shortage, starvation and cannibalism in Jamestown, there needed to be human capital brought in to help maintain what couldn't be maintained by the simple civilians that had come in from England. And Chief Powhatan and his brother, who took over the Confederacy of Powhatan Indians after that, fought for like 40 years. 40 years against more settlers coming in, and literally starved out to the point where there were 38 settlers left at certain points in the history of the nation. So I would say that context for me leads to 1830, the birth of my ancestor James F. Lipscomb, who was in the second class of delegates of African American delegates to be elected into office in Virginia.
That's a whole nother web series that we need you to do about
I'm
your
sorry
background.
to go there. I'm sorry to go there.
This is amazing. I'm mesmerized, but this is a whole nother type,
I'll be glad to talk
web
about
series
it.
that we can actually do based on everything you just told us in the history and legacy, which brings us to the reason why we're here today,
Yeah.
this garden. What does this garden mean to you?
So this garden means, it's almost the context of what I just explained, that we can look back. I had a Miss Joyce used to come to my house, my family's home, when I was 6 and 7 years old. My mom worked for an organization called the Christian Children's Fund at the time. We remember the kind of devastating commercials they used to have. But she spent time in Africa, and a lot of Africans came to stay at my family's home. And Miss Joyce I remember particularly because she was from the Ivory Coast. And every member of her family had been killed in civil war in the Ivory Coast. but she would sit, she was in her 70s at the time, and she would sit and talk about her experiences in Africa. And I would sit and listen and marvel at her feet, just like tradition. And my family members, my aunt was a Fulbright scholar. She went and taught in Nigeria and the Sudan, and she would come back with stories. She lived there for like, I don't know, a few years. I would just say that this pavilion is the actual structure for me that takes that whole scenario, that sitting at the feet of history, that verbalization, that communication of where we came from to this country, and what we should look towards in this country. We built this nation. We are expressly and intentionally American. Every one of the wars that were fought, even to the Powhatan Indian Wars, my family participated in some form or fashion in this nation. So to say that an African American is unpatriotic, or to say that some other group has more right to patriotism than we do, I resist that notion. So this pavilion, off the backs of Africans, my African ancestors, speaks volumes to what we own, what we should be proud of, and what we should speak to as a community of diverse people in this country. We should all lay claim to the beautiful past that we have, because we came out of slavery more powerful than we went into slavery. I believe that.
Well, Cecil, thank you so much. You taught me so much more than I could have ever imagined. So, Cecil, we want to thank you so much for being with us today. And this is Rachel Hill for the African American Cultural Gardens.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Courtney A. Barton, and I'm the Program Director for Arts and Culture and Racial Equity Initiatives at the Cleveland Foundation. The Cleveland Foundation is proud to sponsor the Association of African American Cultural Gardens Black History and Culture webcast series. Culture is the way that we interact and make sense of the world and express ourselves. It is also an inherent human need and a basic human right enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Too often, the story of Black culture is framed as one of deprivation, but I would like to talk about the ways in which Black culture has always thrived. Take, for instance, Adinkra symbols. Now, the symbol of the African American Culture Garden is an Adinkra symbol, Sankofa bird, which is a bird that is depicted as flying forward while looking backwards. Adinkra symbols are an ancient West African writing system originating in a part of the continent that is also known for its iron workers. Now, when these iron workers were kidnapped from their ancestral lands and brought to this continent to help build this country, they often embedded Adinkra symbols in the iron that they wrought. So if you ever have the opportunity to visit an antebellum or colonial building, take a close look at the wrought iron you may find in gates and fences. Rather than a series of decorative shapes, it's often Adinkra symbols you will be looking at. And though you may not understand the meaning of each individual symbol, the overall message to take is that our ancestors survived and retained their and our culture and managed to create great beauty in the midst of the most adverse circumstances.
Welcome back, viewers. I'm KD Hale. This is the Sankofa webcast series brought to you by the Association of African American Cultural Gardens. And this morning, we are so pleased to have Dr. Charles Modlin from the Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Modlin, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's a great privilege and honor actually to be here at this outstanding, beautiful location. It's just very relaxing to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yes, this is the Communities Garden, the African American Cultural Garden. So thank you for joining
Thanks.
us today. So we'd love for you to share with our viewers a little bit about your story. Would you provide a brief summary of Dr. Charles Modlin?
Okay, so I've been in Cleveland since 1993. I did a kidney transplant fellowship, and then I came on staff at Cleveland Clinic. So I'm a kidney transplant surgeon and a urologist. But one of my major areas of interest is minority health, improving minority health, African American health, elimination of healthcare disparities. And it wasn't really until I finished my formal training in transplantation that I became aware of a lot of healthcare disparities that exist in the Black community. You know, when I was growing up, I was born in central Indiana, a little place called Newcastle, Indiana.
Newcastle, Indiana.
Yeah, and
okay.
You know, back in the late 60s, 70s, as I was growing up, my father always used to tell me that nobody cares about Black men. And, you know, I was a small kid, I didn't quite understand it.
Yes.
My father never had a chance to finish his high school education. because he had to leave to go into World War II when he was in 11th grade. And so he always stressed upon me the importance of pursuing your education.
Yes.
And in fact, my mother was the first black school teacher in the whole history of Henry County, Indiana.
Wow.
And she faced a lot of challenges. She went back to become a school teacher, I think she's about 40 years old.
Wow.
4 small kids at home.
Yeah.
We didn't really help her, you know, her task. We were, you know, unruly and noisy and everything.
We were kids.
We were kids.
Yeah.
But both my parents actually set a great example. It was my responsibility to pursue my education. I remember my mom took me up to one of her night schools at Ball State University, and I was running up and down the aisles, and she grabbed me by the arm and she introduced me to the class. She goes, "Well, this is my son, and one day he's going to be going to college also." So when I was 6 years old, that's when the expectation really hit me.
Wow.
That it's my responsibility to get my education. That my parents had placed expectations upon me. And then as I went through college and medical school at Northwestern in Chicago, it kind of resonated with me. My dad said, "Nobody cares about black men." I did my residency at NYU, 6 years residency at NYU. Then I came back. Then I came to Cleveland to do my transplant training. All this stuff stayed with me. Mm-hmm. You know, the messages that my parents and family and community had imparted upon me when I was growing up. And so my father said, "You've had a certain opportunity that nobody else or very few people have had."
Yes.
You're an African American. How many African Americans have had a chance to get a medical school, you know, medical education,
yes,
medical degree? He said, "You've done a great job in you know, graduating, attaining your medical degree." He said, "That's not enough. You actually have to use your medical knowledge, medical expertise to get back to the community, because
yes,
you are where you are because there were people who came before you, made sacrifices to provide you with this opportunity." And so that's how I really developed a passion of the importance and necessity that I play an active role in helping improve the health of the community, the minority
yes,
community. People actually, the minority community, black community, expects the black doctors to get out into the community, understand what they're going through, and actually help alleviate the pain and suffering and the social determinants of health that are ongoing. And so
yes,
we started the Minority Men's Health Fair 2003 Minority Men's Health Center. A lot of people don't know we're doing additional, developing additional minority health, multicultural health programming at the clinic. We started our Minority Stroke Center, April 2019. We're developing a multicultural cardiovascular care center of excellence, kidney and hypertension center, dermatology, cancer, GI, respiratory, you know, endocrinology. It goes on and on. I mean, because we know there are healthcare disparities throughout the spectrum of medicine, and there's something that we can do about it. You know, African Americans have about a 6 to 8 year shorter life expectancy than their white American counterparts. So
that's significant.
And it's very significant. So this is the work that I'm engaged in, involved with, and I've had great support from you and the community. I really appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you and choosing that career and just being so invested in the community. So what prompted you to go to become a doctor?
Yeah, so you know, growing up in central Indiana, there were no black doctors, there were no black dentists.
Okay.
There were actually, my mom, like I said, she was the only black school teacher for the majority of the time when I was in school.
Yes.
I remember in 5th grade, you know, we used to eat lunch at our tables in our rooms.
Okay.
And I would always throw out, you know, the vegetables and everything. And I remember my mom was at the door when I had my tray. I was getting ready to throw it out, and I saw her standing there. I turned around and
eat those vegetables, huh?
Yeah. But again, it's, you know, I always, when I was in middle school, high school, I loved studying science, biology, and in high school, chemistry, physics. But really, even more so than the academic part, when my grandmother, Claire Hampton, she was about 85 years old at the time. She lived to be 103. My mom actually took her into our house, and we took care of her. She was falling, you know, in her home. She couldn't really take care of herself, and so that really, I got to see what it was to help take care of somebody else, and then eventually we had to put her into a nursing home. But even though she was in a nursing home, after school we'd actually literally go visit her every day.
Wow. Amen.
And when I was there, I was able to not only help wheel her to the dining hall, help feed her, but I would start doing the same thing for the other residents in the nursing home, and then
Okay.
the nursing home, and then also I became an orderly in high school. Worked with the nursing staff to help take care of patients, and so, you know, my love of science and biology and helping take care of patients and understanding, you know, that we need to help each other. You know, I grew up in the church, Wiley United Methodist Church.
Yes.
So all this together combined or developed my interest in going into medicine. I thought about going into music, actually.
Okay.
I played trumpet, or I used to be Indiana All-State trumpet player, and I still play a little bit. But
Outstanding.
But you know, to me, it's been a very fulfilling career to be able to help somebody. You don't always see the outcome of your intervention.
Yes.
And a lot of medicine now is gravitating towards not only just waiting for people to present to you when they're sick. A lot of it involves preventative health and wellness, trying to educate the community about better ways in which they can better take care of themselves and prevent the onset of disease.
Yes.
You know, such as diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease, some of these other conditions that we see. Early screenings, early detection of disease can actually save lives, and that's the main reason why we conduct this Minority Men's Health Fair.
I remember in 2003 when it started, so you've come a long way, so great job.
No, thank you.
So let's pivot to African American history. Why is that important? What's your thoughts on the importance of African American history?
Sure. You know, it's very important. You know, like I said, growing up, I didn't have any role models as far as physicians. I mean, my parents were role models. The church, people in the community were role models. But a lot of times, you know, when you're thinking about, you know, when you're a young person thinking about pursuing a certain career path, it's important that you see role models, read about role models, know something about the history of your race, your community.
Yes.
So that you can understand that you can do it also. You can actually pursue your dreams. That's very important for us to be able to pursue our dreams. And without having historical reference and without being able to meet and read about certain African Americans that have achieved certain goals, a lot of times we internalize the belief in ourselves that we cannot accomplish our set goals.
Yes.
And that's the first thing. You actually have to believe in yourself. You know, we've heard that you can accomplish any goal that you like to. That you have to believe in yourself. That's the first step, but then you actually have to make plans and preparations, and you have to execute. You know, upon the challenges before you. You have to in particular seeking a career in medicine. You have to hit the books, study the science, the mathematics, develop good communication skills. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to really execute and have a plan, know how you're going to get from point A to point B. Unfortunately, being an African American, and I've seen this in many situations, I relate this to a lot of the students, which I mentor. We as African Americans, a lot of times if we want to go from point A to point B, we can't just go in a straight line.
Okay.
And I learned this the hard way. I learned it from my parents also. A lot of times we have to go from A to D to, Z to back to, over, above, through, and under.
Yes.
There are a lot of obstacles that have been presented to us, when we want to achieve certain goals. This is a subject matter that actually has become more prevalent, or more people are aware of this. We as African Americans, we've been aware of this our whole lives. Structural racism, institutional racism, overt racism, it can actually cause, and a lot of the social determinants of health, like I mentioned, higher rates of stress, anxiety, depression, self-doubt, a sense of helplessness and hopelessness that we see, especially in our black male populations. All of this combined actually can make us believe that we are not worthy of pursuing a certain profession. And so that's why it is critically important that we impart upon our young kids, or young children, or youth, that there is a rich history in the African American community, the Black community, that we should know. We should be, proud to be African Americans. There have been many inventions and discoveries and innovations by African Americans that we're never going to even know about it unless we actually try to find out what the history is.
Yes.
So history is very important. I mean, this African American Cultural Gardens, this is I see this as a sanctuary where we can actually come, meditate, take in nature. I mean, just being outside there's not only a physical benefit but a psychological and mental health benefit from being outside.
Yes, so true, Dr.
Yes.
Modlin. This is beautiful. So the African American Cultural Gardens, we have viewers out there that may not be members yet.
Yes.
What would you share with people who might be viewing this webcast series, why they should consider becoming a member? And I would want to say that membership is only $40 a year, and we want to grow our membership with the African American Culture Garden. What would you say to people who are thinking about
Yes.
it, or it's not even on their radar screen yet?
Well, I'll tell you, you need membership so you can actually achieve the goals. I know you have some additional goals in terms of adding on to the existing structure here.
Yes.
Creating some fountains and
Yes.
moving water and things like
Building
that.
out the different phases.
Yeah,
We've completed phase 1, but
Yeah.
we have phase 2 and 3 yet.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so without membership and external funding, this goal is not going to be able to be achieved. And so I would encourage everybody. You don't have to be just African Americans, to
Yes.
support this cause.
No question.
But I think it's very important that we raise awareness about the fact that membership is even an opportunity. I think before I spoke to you, I wasn't even aware of that myself, and I want to make sure that my dues are paid up and my membership dues are paid up, because I want to continue to be a part of this process and do anything
Yes.
I can to actually help recruit members. You're doing a lot of heroic lifting, and I know there are a number of individuals. Mayor Frank Jackson has supported
Yes.
this tremendously. But no, we have to raise awareness to all of Cleveland, all of Northeast Ohio, that this African American Cultural Garden does exist. We encourage people to come, walk around, take in the sights. We know that many of us are isolated in our homes because of the COVID-19
Yes.
pandemic, and that actually has led to some additional mental health issues, physical health issues. I see a lot of patients who don't realize that the importance of actually getting outside, getting some sunlight. I mean, this is a sun-drenched area. We're sitting in a shaded area right now, but people of color, we have more melanin in our skin that actually helps interfere with a vitamin D absorption that we need for our muscles, our lungs, our heart health, functioning, our kidneys, our organs, and getting this exogenous sunlight, and it contributes to improved levels of vitamin D, which actually can help reduce our risk of cancer, help reduce our risk of COVID-19. There are some studies out there that show that if you can raise your vitamin D levels to a normal level, African Americans, people of color, we typically have lower vitamin D levels, and that puts us in a precarious condition. But this may be one way in which we can actually help mitigate COVID-19. We have to do more research studies to see what the full beneficial effects of that is. But being in a cultural garden, especially in phase 3, we're going to get some running water, and I've read a lot of research that just being in the midst of plant life, running water, the sound and sight of running water, it actually lowers our blood pressures,
Yes.
reduces our heart rates, improves our mental cognition, and a lot of physicians and scientists may not impart this information onto their patients, to the community, but there's a lot of health-related benefit that just being outside in nature can contribute to just a lower incidence of these chronic diseases. It's not all just about prescribing medications.
Yes.
I would actually propose that doctors should write a prescription to visit the African American Cultural
We
Gardens.
love it.
You know.
We love it.
Yeah,
We love it.
Haven't left to get my prescription pad and start writing that, and I'm going to encourage all the other physicians to do the same thing.
Outstanding, sir. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Modlin. We appreciate you. We thank you for all the work you've done for our community, keeping us healthy, and even teaching us what you've done today in the webcast series. So thank you so much, and continued best wishes to you and yours.
Oh, you too. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the African American Cultural Gardens Sankofa webcast series. Back with more on the other side.
Hi, my name is Levita Ewing from the Association of African American Cultural Garden, and I'm here to ask you to join the movement to help us to complete your garden, the African American Garden, which is one of 36 gardens in the Cleveland Federation of Cultural Gardens here in Cleveland, Ohio. Our garden represents the past, the present, and the future. The past pavilion has already been built. It represents our ancestors going through a doorway and a corridor of no return. Water will cascade down underneath a 50-foot granite place where our ancestors have emerged here in this country to the top of every level in music, science, education, medicine, with a vision for the future, which is our future generation. What a wonderful way to support this part of our history by donating to the African American Cultural Garden. All donations are tax deductible. Go to AAACG.org for your contribution. Thank you.
There's a lot of things that happens when you're dealing with, not doing live stuff. So, but I felt like, why not do it the way I'm doing it? And it's live, and I'm gonna sing it live. Tell me why you came here. Was it just to sit and stare? Won't you come go with me and take out some time? Won't you give me a chance so I can do these things. I want to love you. Take up some time. Whoa, now don't you wanna tonight? I love you tonight. I love you tonight. Don't you wanna? There's a new dance in town. You should be sitting down. You got to move it there. The time must go on and on and on and on. Clap your hands, pat your feet. Now you have got the beat. You got to move it there. The time must go on and on and on and on. Come on, y'all, let's say, Jam tonight. I love you tonight. I wanna do it, man. I gotta jam. Jam tonight. Whoa, don't you want to love? Don't you wanna jam? Don't you want to love? Oh, baby, baby, don't you wanna jam? Yeah. Whoa. You know? Then I thought about it. You know what? I thought about Gladys. I said, it's sad to think that we're not gonna make it. Oh, baby, baby. And it's gotten to the point where we just can't fake it. For some other reason, they just won't let it down. Neither one of us wants to be the first to say it. Goodbye. Listen, I said, and I keep wondering what I'm gonna do with you. And I said, and I guess you must be wondering the same thing too. Listen. So we go on together, living a life. Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode and you learned a little bit more about our garden and people in our community. please sow a seed and watch us grow. You can go to our website to donate, and also our social media links will appear below so you can get caught up on all the updates at the garden and see what we're doing. Please stay tuned for further episodes that you will enjoy in the future. Sow a seed and watch us grow.